Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I am going to be doing another review. I've been really lucky in all the books that I've read in the last couple of months. I have read so many 4-star and 5-star reads. It's actually been quite phenomenal. Quite shocked actually at how many books I've loved this year. I think right now I'm on track for hitting the most amount of 5 stars that I've ever read. I had quite a lot of 5 stars last year as well, but this year I feel like is going to be a winner in that regard. And I think it's just because I know what I like now, and so when I see books, I don't really get taken in by the hype. If I don't think I'm going to like it, I generally just won't pick it up. I like what I like, and I try to pick books that I know are going to fit that as much as they possibly are. I'm also one of those people that, because I know what I like, I don't tend to experiment that much. Yeah, I'm hoping that I keep going on with this amazing trend of just 5-star reads. And the reason why I say this is because this next book that I'm going to review is a book that I had really no idea what to expect, because I have read from this author before and I've really enjoyed his books. But this was one of those really pleasant surprises where after I finished the book, I kind of just had to sit down for a bit and reflect on what an incredible experience that I had. So this is just going to give you a little bit of a flavour of what to expect in this review. So the book I'm going to be reviewing is A Quiet Vengeance by Tim Hardie. By the time this video comes out, the book should be out. So definitely check it out. I'll put all of Tim's details in the description below. So Tim has another series, and that is the Brotherhood of the Eagle series. There are 3 books currently out. I have read the first 2 books. I reviewed the first book on my channel. Once I've completed the entire series, I'll do an entire series review of that series. It's really great. It's very like kind of Viking inspired, very Nordic inspired. Kind of reminds me of Bernard Cromwell. This one I was really interested in because the setting is very different to the Brotherhood and the Eagle. It is set in the same world, but it is very kind of Middle Eastern, South Asian, Southeast Asian kind of influenced. And so I was really curious because I am generally somebody who I get a little bit wary when I see someone write a piece of fiction that is very dependent on a different culture to the one that they are from. Unless you're like a historian and like you've studied that period of history for like years and years and years, then fair enough. But generally I have a sense of wariness when I see somebody who isn't from that culture try to talk about that culture. I've definitely seen cases where somebody has tried to do that and they've completely bombed at it. But then I have had a few experiences where somebody maybe doesn't come from that place, but because they've done so much research and because they love that culture or that period of history or whatever, they are able to do it justice. And I have to say, Tim really falls into that camp. So I'm now going to just jump into my review. A very, very quick plot summary. It's not going to be the most detailed summary in the world because I think it's one of those books that you should just go into it without really knowing much about it. But the quick summary is that we are essentially following 2 main POVs, and we are following them both in the present when they are adults, and one is a prince and the other one is essentially a member of a very, very well-known bank, and they are essentially doing business together. There is this kind of subplot line. We go back in the past, we learn about these 2 characters when they were younger and how something happened between these 2 people that is kind of the secret. It's the kind of smoking gun that which we don't really know about. We only really learn about it towards the end of the book, towards the middle and the end of the book. And so it's a book of mystery, right? There's this kind of big mystery plot and we don't know what's happening. I tried to guess and I didn't guess it. And that's why I say it's quite nice to go into it without really knowing much about it, because you just kind of embrace the ride that it is. So what did I love? I'm going to start with the culture piece that I mentioned. The culture piece was phenomenal. So I've talked on my channel before about how I love Middle Eastern, South Asian, East Asian, you know, anything that is basically non-Western fantasy, because we just don't get as much of that type of fantasy than we do Western fantasy. And honestly, I enjoy it. I still read a lot of that type of fantasy, but it gets a little boring sometimes. Sometimes you want something a little bit different. And so I really love the way that Tim brought that aspect into this world. I don't know what he based it on or if he was particularly influenced, but he does mention baklava. which is a very common Middle Eastern and North African dessert. It's basically layers of phyllo pastry and nuts and then like honey syrup. It's like the most incredible thing ever, and if you have never tried it, you definitely should. So I have a feeling it's maybe kind of more Middle Eastern, North African inspired, but then there were also things that kind of reminded me of kind of South Asian cultures. Some of the names sound like they're from, like they could be from the south of Asia. And so I just thought it was this kind of mishmash of Asia, Middle East, and I just loved it. It felt very authentic. It didn't feel like it was kind of shoved down my throat. And I think Tim got a really good balance of making this world feel very realized. And the other thing that he did really well in this regard was that the world felt quite rich. We have a really good sense of what the main location looks like. It's called Bengarath. I just felt like I knew what Bengarath looked like. And I feel like if you asked me to draw a picture of it, don't ask me to do that because I'm terrible at drawing. But if you did, I could probably paint something or draw something that would look quite vivid. And that's a testament to his writing, because I feel like world building, I've mentioned before, is I think some authors do it exceptionally well and some others do it okay, and then some don't even attempt to. I think Tim definitely aligns more with the kind of masters of world building, and I really, really appreciated it. The next thing that I really loved about this book, and I probably should have started with this one first, was just his writing. Tim's writing has really gone up a notch. I mean, he didn't really need to, because his writing is really solid in the second book of the Brotherhood of the Eagle, which is the most recent one that I've read. I just felt like this book was sharper, it was tighter, it felt like everything was really kind of fitting together. It really shows his growth as a writer. I actually, as I was reading it, I messaged him and I said this to him. I was like, look, I don't know what you've done, but whatever you've done, it's working, and keep doing it, because everything just felt, I don't know, like elevated. I love seeing, you know, authors take their craft seriously, and this kind of shows to me that, you know, he's really kind of leveled up as an author, and I can't wait to see how that continues to develop, because I already thought he was pretty phenomenal, and now I just think he is damn right phenomenal. The next thing that I loved, and this is not going to be a surprise to anybody, is the fact that it is a very character-driven book. I would say Tim's Brotherhood of the Eagle series is very plot-driven. There's a lot of really cool characters, surrounding cast of characters, but it is very much driven by the plot. But I have to say, Quiet Adventures is definitely very character-driven. We are really centering on these two people that we are following. The first character is Nimsa. She is an orphan who grows up in the rough kind of part of Bengarath. Then the second character we have is Dojan, who is a prince, and he has grown up in a life of privilege. So we have these two diametrically opposite people, but then yet they are unified by this event that happens when they are both younger. And like I said before, we don't really know what that is. Because of that, there is this constant sense of tension between the two of them as they share this secret. And because we don't really learn that, like I said earlier, towards the kind of middle and end of the book, you know, it kept me personally on the edge of my seat. The characters themselves are also really compelling. I mean, Nimsa, I just really liked the character. She felt super relatable. She's very bright. You know, I was wondering as I was read it, what would it have been like if she had been in a position of privilege and she'd been given access to all the opportunity that Dojan got access to. And I guarantee you she would be extremely successful. I mean, she is very successful when she's an adult as well, but it does make you kind of think about, you know, what would have happened with these two people if they had access to equal opportunities. And then Dojan, you know, Dojan, he's kind of like a bit of a spare part. You know, he has a sister and he has a brother, and the sister was very, very smart, very politically adept. And then the younger brother is a scholar. He's very, very intelligent, very book smart. And then you just have Dojan. You just have Dojan, who's just Dojan. He's just kind of there. He doesn't really do anything apart from just drink wine and lays about, basically. But I like him because he's very self-aware, and I think he develops as we go throughout the book. I really loved his perspective because we really get into his head, and I just loved that he is definitely an optimist, but he's also very rational, and he also does have a lot of skills. He's very good at unifying people, which is a skill that not many people actually have. So he's kind of like a bit of a dark horse, kind of like the black sheep, but there's actually a lot of depth and layer to him that I personally really enjoyed. And then just to add to that, there's a really good secondary cast of characters. You know, these are our two POVs, but we do have a vast array of other characters who kind of support these two, and I felt like they were all fleshed out. The next thing that I loved was the politics. I would say the politics is just kind of a really big central thing of kind of Tim's writing. It's a big part of the Brotherhood of the Eagle, but I would say it's like next level in this book, because obviously it's a standalone, so it kind of goes to the next level. Everything happens a lot quicker. There's just like thread within thread within thread, and I just loved it. There's just so much intrigue. There's subplot lines within subplot lines, and despite the fact that there's so much happening, it never feels overwhelming. It never feels like there's a hanging thread. Everything gets wrapped up perfectly by the end of the book, which is a really good skill in itself. The last thing that I'm going to talk about is the thematic work. There's a lot of kind of different themes at play here. We kind of get kind of the whole idea of found family. We kind of get the whole idea of knowing your place and figuring out who you are, what you want to do, what your skills are, what you're good at. We also have, I would say, kind of maybe not as detailed, but definitely kind of skirting over the topic of class, inequality and inequity in a society. And then I also think there's this whole kind of idea around duty and your duty to your family versus your duty to your people. So I think there's a little something here for everybody. I mean, these are all themes that I love in my book, so I was eating it right up. But I really like the way that everything was handled. I just feel like the way that this book was written, it was just perfection. I read this book in a day, or maybe it was actually 2 days. And I only read it in 2 days because I started it on a Sunday and I had to work on Monday. And if I hadn't had to work on Monday, I would have read it I would have read it within 24 hours. But I messaged Tim after I finished the book and I said to him, you actually made me miss the gym because I wanted to finish the book so badly. So I wake up pretty early. I woke up at like 5:30, 6 a.m. to go to the gym for about 7:30, do my little bits and pieces, and I just decided not to go to the gym. And I have no regrets, guys. I have absolutely zero regrets about doing that. It was phenomenal. Without a surprise, I doubt it's a surprise, I gave this a 5 stars. So this is a self-published book. I don't typically review self-published books on my channel because I know how hard you guys work, and I never want to put, if I don't like something or I personally didn't enjoy something, I never want to give, a bad or a low star rating to a self-published author. I just personally, that's kind of my line. But I just have to say I gave this a 5 stars. If I could have given this a 10 stars, I absolutely would have. This has been one of my favourite books that I've read this year. Bear in mind what I said at the start, which is that I've read a lot of 5-star reads this year and a lot of like new favourites. And this one is up there. I would say right now it's probably in my top 3 or 5, but it was phenomenal. I loved every single thing about it. And when I finished the book, I felt so sad. I felt so sad that I'd finished it and I wish I'd read it slower. But at the same time, I'm glad that I didn't, because I just wanted to know what happened. So if you haven't picked it up, so if you haven't ordered it, or if you haven't heard about it, you should definitely go check it out. It's a standalone fantasy. There's not tons of magic in it. It's quite low fantasy, I would say. But it is standalone, so you can just read it and not have to commit to, a bigger series. I don't really remember there being many Easter eggs with the Brotherhood of the Eagle, so it's not going to spoil you for any of Tim's other books. You can just go into this if you are a new reader to Tim's, books and his world that he's created, and I promise you, you'll just love it. So definitely go and pick it up. If you've read it, let me know. Esme, I know you've read it, so hit me down below. And if you have any questions, as always, don't hesitate to ask. Thanks for watching, folks, and thank you, Tim, for sending me a e-arc of the book. I loved it, and I can't wait to see what you do next, because honestly, if it's even half as good as A Quiet Vengeance, let's just say I'm going to be very happy as a reader. Thanks for watching, everybody. Take care, stay safe, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.